Hello everybody and welcome to Wheels and Toys, and today I thought we'll talk a little bit about the 718 exhaust options. So especially we're going to talk about the exhaust options for the 4.0 liter engines that you'll find in both the Spyder and the GT4, but recently also in the Boxster and the Cayman GTS models. So in the beginning, there was not many options to choose from. Now over time, there are more and more options for you to go for. But before we actually talk about what options there are, we need to discuss what kind of modifications you want to do, but more importantly, what modifications you are willing to do. Because changing these exhausts basically tampers with the legality or how legal your car will be wherever you live in the world, but also when it comes down to your warranty from Porsche. So replacing the back box is quite easy. You can do it basically wherever you are. But if you want to tamper with the catalytic converters or with the GPF or OPF, basically the gas particulate filters, you might be in another place. First, we need to understand basically how that exhaust looks and works to be able to decide what kind of modifications you want to do. So this exhaust basically consists of three parts. First, you have the headers with the catalytic converters, one for each side, of course. And then we have the overaxle pipes, which goes over the rear axle. And at the end of those, we have the gas particulate filters. No matter where you are in the world, you're gonna have these filters. But if you are in Europe, you will have monitored filters. If you're in the US and some other parts of the world, you will have unmonitored filters. And those filters have a higher flow as well, some reports say. But for the European ones, you have these monitored filters. And if you want to remove those or do anything else with them, if you remove that monitoring, you will have a faulty code for the engine. So either you're gonna run around with a check engine light or you're gonna need to tune your car. And tuning your car, of course, means fiddling with the ECU, and doing that means, of course, no more warranty. So think of that before you start fiddling with the GPFs. And after that, we basically have the only muffler or silencer, and that's the back box of the car. And that's what we're gonna focus on today. We're gonna keep on coming back a little bit to the different overaxle pipes because I think they are very interesting. They are very restrictive, both with the filters when it comes to sound and performance, but also the tubing on that actual overaxle pipe that is quite narrow from Porsche stock. But something that I also think is worth thinking about is actually starting with the valve controller. I have a separate video talking about the valve controller and doing the install and that difference that it actually makes. I'll link it down below and you can also see it up here at this moment. But basically have a look at that because I think you need to do that whatever options you go for, but it basically means that you can open the valves at any point of time that you want to because Porsche had to restrict that to be able to get this car to be legal, at least in Europe. So have a look at that, and I think you're gonna do that as a first mod. So the first question then, what manufacturer should you go with? And in the beginning, there were just like one or two options that you could actually go with, but today you have multiple options, ranging from JCR to Fabspeed and Akrapovic. But let's go through most of them. So first and foremost, you have JCR. That was the first one to release a system, I think, for the 718 platform. And they are based in UK. They do very high quality stuff. Mainly their back box is the most, like I would say, popular item. It's quite expensive. If you choose to get it in stainless steel, it's £3,500. British pounds plus taxes and export. And this is something we'll come back to, that a lot of these systems are basically developed and built or manufactured in the UK, and given Brexit, that will now apply extra export taxes to anyone wanting to buy goods from them. So think of where you actually buy your system from, where you are situated and where the manufacturer are. So JCR, very good system. We can have a short listen to them here. think that sounds really, really good. Have a look at it. It's super nice. And the links, of course, are down below. And the second system I think we should look at is Fabspeed. Manufactured in the US, very high quality. I've had some of their systems and they are great. They have two systems. They have one which is basically just a racing system, free flowing, quite cheap, but you don't get that valve possibility. They also have a valve system, which is a very nice system. It's these ones, and that's also something that are different in these systems. Some of them are a cross pipe setup, and some of them are more of just a straight sort of out from the two different cylinder banks. The JCR system is a cross pipe system, while the Fabspeed system is sort of straight out from the cylinder banks. But if you look at the Fabspeed systems, they are very high quality. They also offer over-axle pipe setup, and I think now headers as well. But let's just have a listen to that system. It sounds great. Moving on to Akrapovic. They are one of the most famous, if not the most famous, developer and manufacturer of these systems, or systems at all to any sports car. They have a system, it looks very OEM, looks very high quality in that matte finish. I think all of the systems they develop are titanium. They call it a slip-on, but basically it's a back box, but they also offer over-axle pipes. But I think like the back box is the one to go for. Unless you're in the States, you can do multiple setups, of course. But that one is, of course, also sounds amazing and looks amazing. So next one, that's a European, that was one of my favorites, and that's Cargraphic. They have developed systems for Porsches and other sports cars for multiple years. It's run by a guy called Thomas. It's a very friendly guy. He's more than happy, I hope so, to answer your questions if you have some around these systems. We had a lot of discussions regarding like what kind of systems should you go for, and I think these ones are very important to mention. Thomas and Cargraphic are the only one at this moment that offers an over-axle pipe with a flow optimized filter that you can run monitored. So you don't have to change your ECU. You can still get a better flow for a bigger piping over the axle. You get a optimized flow within the filters, and there's zero ECU tune that you have to do wherever you are in the world. They also offer over-axle pipes without filters if you're in the US or anywhere else where you don't have monitored filter and you want to remove those. But bear in mind as well that they are there for a reason. They also offer 3 different back boxes. The first one is a touring version. Basically that goes out from both cylinder banks and fully open. And in the closed mode, you have quite a big muffler for that comfort or when you go for a longer drive in these cars, as you can. The second one is a track and competition style. It offers a cross pipe setup for the open valve and a smaller diameter silencer for the closed one. And the third option they have is a cross pipe racing. That's also, as the sound and the name says, it's a cross pipe setup. And that system also have a small diameter silencer for the closed mode. But that basically the difference with the track and this one, and I think this is quite important, is at least what it states is that the track and competition you can use on full load in the closed mode without having too much of a downside when it comes to power. And I think this is very important given that a lot of the tracks in Europe, and I think in the whole world basically, you do have sound restrictions. We have that on Laguna Seca or Mazda Raceway running the GT4. That's also linked below. But with that setup, we had to lift the throttle going up the hill, because that's where then they actually sit with the microphone and listen for noise restrictions. And then you get thrown out of the track. So make sure you get a setup that works for how you use your car. But I think that's quite important, that the track competition can be pushed with full load with the closed valves to still be able to run your car on tracks with that restriction. So I think all of them sounds amazing. Can have a short listen to them. But they also recently released a video with a car running their full system. That means header with sport catalytic converters, over axle pipes with the flow optimized filters that are monitored, and the back box where they are running, I think it's the cross pipe racing system. And basically this is a full system that's fully compliant with any regulations and laws in Europe. No ECU tune. And I think the car sounds amazing. I think that's how it should have sounded from the beginning from Porsche. It more sounds kind of like a GT3 in the setup, but especially it reminds us of that beautiful sound from the 981 GT4s, the 3.8 liter. And talking to Thomas, he also says like, this is the closest we can get to that, even though that engine can't really sound as raspy as that 3.8, given that it has another kind of structure, how it's built on the Evo block from the new, basically from the 991 and the 992 engines. Next one out is Supersprint. I think it's a very interesting system. It's one of the first as well. It's a very quite simple design of a system. It's straight out from both of the cylinder banks in open mode, and in the closed mode it's a silencer in the middle. This system, I think it's interesting because it's the cheapest of the bunch. It's a bit about 2,000 something euros plus taxes and shipping, I guess. But it all depends on where you are in the world. Supersprint also have dealers all around the world, so you can have a fair price in your local market. I'm not sure about the sound. I just saw 1 or 2 clips of it, but let's see if we like it. So next one, Kline or Kline, I don't know. They are famous for doing Porsche systems that are high quality. The system looks great, and this system is also a cross pipe solution. If you go for the Kline system, you can get the over axle pipes if you want to, but that over axle pipe worth mentioning, can't be ran with the OEM back box. If you get the overaxle pipes, you have to get their back box as well, because they have flipped how the exhaust valves and the flow are going. So unless you want to basically lose power, you need to get both of them, and they are not keen to selling you the overaxle pipes unless you get the back box. But sounds amazing. Next up in line, another UK manufacturer, BC Fabrications, also a cross pipe solution. Sounds amazing, but something that's really interesting with this back box, they have a full system, but the back box I think is the most interesting, and I think what most people will go for. And this system basically has small silencer if you look at the system, but worth noting is that they are on the open side and not on the closed side. So doing the muffling on the closed side basically is done by having smaller diameter on the tubing, while on the open side it actually became too loud, so they had to put this silencer in there. And that was something I found out by talking to them, that they said like it's too loud, so we had to put in there. Otherwise, there were no tracks that you could actually take these cars to, and it wouldn't be enjoyable. It has a nice little crackling sound once you start the car, and of course, it sounds amazing. Next one out is Soul Performance. They are based in the US. They have a really sort of aggressive lineup of their exhaust systems. The guys over at Obsessed Garage run this full system on their dark blue or gentian blue GT4, and we can have a listen to that one. It screams, right? It's an amazing system, but worth noting is that there's no valves, there's no filters, there's nothing on that. So it's compliant, I guess, in some states in the US, but it's something that I wouldn't maybe run on a car in Europe. You have to replace all these parts, and it's not really legal. And also think of like, should you replace all these parts? But nice system, nicely priced, and it looks to be quite good quality as well. And the last one in the lineup, it's basically a British company as well, a lot of British companies here, and that's from a company that's very famous for tuning Nissan GTRs over 1,000 horsepower, and they are also quite famous for doing great tunes to the 3.0 liter engine with the turbos for the 991.2 and the 992s. Where they actually do over 600 horsepower from basically a stock engine. And that's Litchfield Motors in the UK, and they have recently released their system, and they are constantly working on that system and developing it. But it also sounds very nice, of course. And that's it, people. So a long list of companies with different exhaust options. I linked all of them below. There's also links to the different YouTube clips of the exhaust systems running on the cars that you can have a look at if you want to. Hopefully now you get a little bit of a glimpse of what's out there and how you maybe should think of what system you get. Of course, if you do the headers and overaxle pipes, You might get a more of a roar sound to your engine. You can run that with the OEM back box. Or if you want to go for more sound, you can just do the back box and be more compliant towards Porsche and your warranty. It's a simpler job to switch it out. And these parts are quite expensive. So basically, if you need to have filters and you need to have catalytic converters, which I think you should, you're basically looking at 3,000 euros, 3,500 euros per part, essentially. And that rounds up to quite a big number, about 10% of what these cars cost new. So think of that before you just run out and buy all the stuff, right? But if you have the money, just go for it. The car will sound amazing. And if you want to go full on, have a look at JCR and their sort of development car. That's a nice piece of kit. But I hope you find your system. I have found mine. And in the next video, I'm gonna tell you which one I went for, how the setup is gonna work, maybe more steps, and why I went with that system, because I think that's suitable very much for how I'm gonna drive the 718 Spyder, and why I think it works best with the Spyder. I think it works good with the GT4 as well, but this is what I went for. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in the next video. And hopefully by then, you have figured out what system you're gonna go for. But until next time, take care.